Law Kura Garau. Dr. Yengde, Pradip Bhai, thank you for coming to my podcast. This is going to be a very interesting one. Took a lot of persuasion for me to host this. अनि म आफू एउटा प्रिभिलेज्ड ब्राह्मण पनि भएँ होइन, दाइहरू दुवैजना दलित समुदाय, त्यो माथि पनि अझ दलित समुदायको एक्टिभिस्टहरू. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning a lot. As a lay person, I don't know a lot of things, so I'm going to try to ask a lot of stupid questions. I might sound stupid at times. I hope you guys don't mind it.
Well, it will be a feast of three stupids talking to each other.
Well, I'll start with Dr. Suraj. A lot of people know you as a best-selling author, a guy with multiple doctorates, activist. What's that? Something people don't know about you that's not on the resume?
Oh, yeah, that's a very hard and deep question to begin with. Actually, I need to drink another glass of water to come to that response. I think there are so many. I'm a fun person to hang out with. I am not. I am actually misunderstood many times than fully grasping the content and the kind of views I hold. People actually don't know many times my story, and everything I say has a certain element of experience. Mm-hmm. So sometimes if I say my opinions might not be digestible to many people, mm-hmm. but many times it's also so it's so people don't know that I am still exploring different avenues through food culture. I love people's culture. Mm-hmm. And I think if we keep digging more, the laundry list will be long. But maybe towards the end of this podcast, I'll come with some more creative responses.
So what was it like growing up in Nanded? I mean, you've been to different parts of the world, right? Now you can look back and then compare the lives and enjoy the privileges too, probably.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I make no excuses about that, because our life should aim to have equitable privileges. What we miss out on is the privilege that we have is predicated on immense insecurity that the government has created among people, and that creates much more fear, and that gives rise to normalizing inequality. So our aim of life should not be to, if you are coming from poor family, to remain poor. If a person who is poor, his children are poor, then that's the failure of collective society. All of us have failed that person. The government, me, everybody in that process. But if the person is moving from poor to middle class or upper middle class, then we can see a measurement of success. But if only that is applied to one exceptional case and we make bones out of it, then we have really a very hard society that will, and so that will basically look at cases and say this is how it has been, work hard and stuff like. But we don't understand there's so many barriers that people are. So the life story has been like that, to kind of come out of poverty, to come out of not having basic things, to come out of the experience of only having 2 socks to wear, and if it rains, and in our parts of the world it rains, it doesn't rain just casually. The rain is real deal. The rain is like, and for people like us who didn't have a proper roof, it came and slept with us. The rain was a very personal experience, and so was other weathers. So now from 2 socks to having 2 dozen socks, designer socks, that's the kind of life that has been different from what I grew up to what you see now.
प्रदीप दाइलाई त अब जोस् हाम्रो नेपाली भ्युवर्सहरू त सबैले चिन्छ नै होला हैन दाइ धेरै समय भयो हजुरले फेरि यो दलितको मुद्दाहरूलाई लिएर काम गरिराख्नु भएको पहिलासम्म त फाउन्डेसन मैले चिन्दाबाट बनाउन त्यतिखेर अहिले यो दलित लाइभ्स म्याटरको अर्गनाइजेसन पनि फर्म भएको छ त्यो पनि लिड गरिराख्नु भएको छ दाइ अनि अघि कुरामा दाइले 6 घण्टा लाग्थ्यो सिन्धुलीमा जन्मेको ठाउँमा बस चढ्न जानको लागि भन्नुभयो हैन दाइ
हो
त्यो कस्तो थियो दाइ त्यतिखेरको बाल्यकाल
बाल्यकाल चाहिँ सजिलो अरूको तुलनामा भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब अलिकति सजिलो पनि भन्न सकिन्छ किनभने मेरो बुवा सरकारी जागिरे भएको भएर हामीलाई पढ्ने वातावरण चाहिँ थियो कम्तीमा चाहिँ खानेको लागि समस्या थिएन तर जातको आधारमा हुने विभेद चाहिँ मैले स्कुलमा पनि र सरहरूबाट पनि भोगेको भएर चाहिँ त्यो फेरि छुट्टै खालको अनुभव चाहिँ छ त्यसमा र अहिले त अब तपाईहरु जानुभयो भने धेरै मान्छे चाहिँ सिन्धुलीको बाटो हिँड्दाखेरि चाहिँ खुरकोट भन्ने ठाउँमा त गाडी पुगेर आनन्द छ त्यहाँ त्यतिखेर गाडी नहुँदाखेरि चाहिँ हामी सदरमुकामबाट गाडी चढेर काठमाडौँ आउनु पर्यो भने चाहिँ 6 घण्टा हिँड्नु पर्थ्यो भनेको मतलब चाहिँ गाह्रो चाहिँ थियो तर अलिकति हाम्रो त्यो बेलामा सोसाइटीमा चाहिँ अलिकति यो कम्युनिस्ट प्रभाव भएको भएर त्यहाँ अलिकति यो जागरण पनि सँगसँगै चाहिँ थियो र त्यो चेतना चाहिँ ममा पनि थियो अलिकति त्यो चेतना चाहिँ अलिकति आएको थियो भनौं न
I mean, Pradip just talked about this, how the city has gone into a transformation, what it used to be like. Mm-hmm. Is that the case with Nanded as well now?
Yeah, I mean, yes. You know, see, Nanded is, we have across India, 600 plus districts. Now probably they have added more because the new states keep carving out. And so Nanded is among the 250 most backward. Mm-hmm. And top of that, it is what they call atrocity-prone area. What that means is atrocities committed on caste. So the caste violence is very, very palpable, very fluid. It can ignite tensions easily. Just about 2 weeks ago, in my near 6 kilometers, 7 kilometers from Nanded city, in a village, one young man, 24 years old, wanted to celebrate Dr. Ambedkar's birthday. And he organizes, but there's a strong pushback because Dalits in major cities that we see is different than what we see in villages. This gentleman wanted to celebrate Ambedkar's birthday by carrying out a procession, like your right to, have an assembly and exercising his basic human rights. But the landlords on whose field the Dalit family is working would not appreciate that because this is a moment of assertion. And this was the first time in the history of that village that a Dalit assertion was going to take place. So the police had to intervene, but they also skirted it very quick. They say, don't make loud noise, you can't do it. Just do it because, you have right, but you have to do it the way we would like to so that it doesn't create a tension and communal. However, it happened, there was protest, and about down the line, 2 months now, when he was walking down the street, the young man, he was hacked and his intestines were torn apart just because he chose to assert himself. And his mom gave a testimony that she saw it, so she ran towards him when they were hacking him. She said, I had to carry the intestines and put back in his stomach. And this just because he didn't abuse anybody. He did not go and call someone names. He didn't rob. He did nothing. What he just did is a very basic constitutional right that is guaranteed by the state to every individual who is a citizen of the country. But he wanted to celebrate. Celebration is not wrong. Celebration is always meant to be a feast. Everybody comes, celebrate. Celebration doesn't have an exclusion. It's like, come eat. This is how we celebrate. But the Dalit celebration is seen as assault to the fears that people don't know what about. They don't know what to be afraid about. And thus the result was brutal death.
Wow. What happened to that case?
And then, as it goes with, this is very particular, and I think for lawyers to really pay attention to this is any assertion of a Dalit, when taken to court, is counter-challenged. So whenever a Dalit, so we have a very good law called Prevention of Atrocities Act. It's been going through a lot of changes, right? And it's meant to be strengthening because you can't. But the point is, we all know, law reflects the emotion of society.
Absolutely.
It doesn't represent the rule of society. And so what the emotion says is different than what rule is. Rules are codified, approved, and then made into law. Emotions can be changed. Today I love people from Nevari community. Tomorrow I read, I might not like them. Or today I like Dalits, day after I might not like it. Emotions change, right? And it can be, but the very peculiar thing about caste is, it's so dynamic that it's imagine like a ray coming out and going through the prism, and then you have 7 rays, right? It's so you might attack somebody, but then there are so many ramifications. So it's a very social issue. Mm-hmm. So with that case, a counter case was filed. I mean, not with this, but there's been accusations that of filthiest nature. He was doing all kinds of immoral things, and and so now the case is in the court, and I guarantee you, most likely, in few years' time, the memory of that, the heat of that might not be as same, and due to lack of evidence and with the law playing its game and kind of, because people who have resources can control you. Doesn't matter. The law is on your side. Because at the end of the day, you have to feed, not just yourself, but your poor family and your hungry kids. So they will be acquitted. I have and the acquittal rate, when you look at this law, is frightening, and it exhibits in the absence of social approval, laws are merely state fascinations. They are merely these fancy words for parliamentarians and provincial assemblies to announce through in the house, keep it in the record, and the media to report, and then celebrate. It's like a poetry mahfil of the parliamentarians representatives. After mahfil, entertainment finish, and we go and get back to our work.
प्रदीप दाइ, यो शब्दको अर्थ खोज्छु एकचोटि। दलित भनेर के बुझ्ने दाइ?
अब नेपालको सन्दर्भमा र सुरजले पनि यसमा थप्नुहुन्छ। अब नेपालको सन्दर्भमा चाहिँ जातको आधारमा जसमाथि चाहिँ विभेद गरिरहेको छौँ, उनीहरूको समुदायलाई बुझाउने एउटा शब्दको रूपमा बुझ्छौँ। अहिले दलित आयोगले पनि एउटा डेफिनेसन गरेको छ, जसमा चाहिँ 26 भन्दा बढी जात चाहिँ यसभित्र पर्छन्। र अब यसलाई अलि उ गरेर भन्यो भने डेफिनेसनको रूपमा चाहिँ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ जातको आधारमा छुवाछुत, विभेद, हुन त जात व्यवस्थाले धेरै बहुआयामिक समस्याहरू सृजना गरेको छ, तर जो माथि चाहिँ अहिले सबभन्दा बटममा छन् उनीहरूलाई बुझ्छ, त्यो समुदायलाई बुझ्छ, त्यो 26 जातको समूह अहिले त्यो बढेको पनि छ भन्ने पनि छ, तर त्यो अहिले चाहिँ त्यसरी बुझिएको छ। मेबी सुरज क्यान डिफाइन मोर अन
the meaning of Dalit.
Dalit is basically the most vulnerable sense of our being. Dalit socially means the people who have been broken into pieces. But the beauty of broken things is they can be repaired. They are not annihilated. So Dalit as a being is to recreate the broken society. And in that brokenness, Dalits are the strongest glue. They connect and eventually they integrate society. In its literal terms, Dalit is now translated as the former untouchables, the ones who were not allowed to be in the vicinity. Depending on your hierarchy, if you are from the caste who's cleaning the carcass, then there were certain paces you should be away from. So depending on the caste kind of system, untouchability was imposed, which was you just don't touch because it's so impure and defiling that it might also change your sense of being. So that's how strong a Dalit presence was, that mere touch would contaminate your own self. And then not only touching, but it also meant that they were not seeables. Seeing them was also a site of pollution to yourself. So you have to take a bath, probably use the cow urine and make yourself freshen, just because you saw a very defiling image of an untouchable. Not only untouchable and unseeable, but they were also unapproachable. Meaning, if you want to get some service done, you don't want to go and approach them. You summon somebody to come and for them to come to you and do. So it's a very ridiculous system that the caste system has created. And as ridiculous as it sounds, we have defenders of this ridiculous joke that was created in society. And people attach adherence to their tradition, to their culture, to their religion, to their belief, all just to maintain their supremacy. Dalit being challenges that.
Mm-hmm.
It says that what we are thinking about, what are we going to do about, and how are we going to enact about. This about is the very reference point of each society's hierarchies. What are we going to do about the hierarchy? And so Dalit is the most bottom. But in our sense, Dalit is somebody who's rebelling, who's trying to humanize the hateful, ugly society. Dalit is someone who is integrating the broken pieces. Dalit is something that is giving you more reasons to live. It is appreciating the inner core of hidden love that we have buried because we have just appreciated the ugliness that our ancestors have taught. Dalit is actually a reason for us to write a new poetry that has just been remained into the two people's minds, but it has to be made public. So Dalit is basically a public approval, but also it's at the same time a shame on society that we still carry that stigma, and yet we are not willing to move ahead in the centuries that we are still using modern technologies.
So it's basically not just merely a marginalized community, but a systematically marginalized community. That's what you're trying to say.
Correct.
Yeah. प्रदीप दा, यो इन्स्टिट्युसनलाइज गर्ने कुरा पनि धेरै सुनिन्छ नि, जस्तो गभर्मेन्टले इन्स्टिट्युसनलाइज गरे, अघि डाक्टर सुरोजले पनि टच गर्नुभएको कुरा सुरुमै इनिसियली नै होइन, गभर्मेन्टले इन्स्टिट्युसनलाइज कसरी गर्छ यो कुराहरूलाई, विभेदलाई भन्ने कुरालाई। जस्तो अहिले यो विषय नागरिकता सम्बन्धी विषय आइरहेको बेलामा पनि अहिले धेरै पछि यो कुरा उठ्यो कि कन्स्टिट्युसनमा नै जब हामीले विभेद गरेर महिला र पुरुष भनेर लेख्छौँ, विभेद त त्यहीँबाट सुरु भयो नि त हेर्दै, त्यसपछि त कानुन पनि त्यस्तै आउँछ त्यसमा टेकेर। हाम्रो नेपालमा पनि त्यही भइरहेको हो, यो त दलित समुदायको लागि लिएर पनि कि गभर्मेन्ट आफैले नै यो कुरालाई इन्स्टिट्युसनलाइज गरिरहेछ, संविधानदेखि लिएर बन्ने नियम कानुनमा पनि।
पहिलो कुरा के हो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ यदि हाम्रो शरीरको कुनै अङ्गमा घाउ लागेको छ भने त घाउ लागेको छ भन्ने कुरा त हामीलाई थाहा हुनु पऱ्यो। घाउ लागेको छ भनेपछि भन्ने कुरा रेकग्नाइज गरेपछि त्यसपछि उपचार खोजिन्छ। हैन। अब यो संविधानमा भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ कानुनमा छ, त्यसपछि नियममा छ, नीतिमा छ, बजेटमा छ, प्रोग्राममा छ। भनेको मतलब चाहिँ यो घाउ लागेको छ भनेर स्वीकारेको हो जस्तो मलाई लाग्छ यो संविधानमा हुनु, कानुनमा हुनुभएको। अघि डाक्टर सुरेशले पनि भन्नुभयो कि यो ब्रोकन पिसलाई यदि यो समाजलाई समृद्ध समाज बनाउने हो भनेदेखि चाहिँ एउटा समाजको सेगमेन्टलाई बाहिर राखेर त यो समृद्ध समाज त बन्न सक्दैन र यो अग्ली समाज नै हुन्छ। हामीले जति नै यो केही पनि छैन भने पनि यो अन्डर द कार्पेट राखे पनि वास्तविकतामा छ, हाम्रो माइन्डसेटमा छ। र हामीले अब धेरै मान्छेले के भन्छन् भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो सहरमा छैन, यो गाउँमा छ भन्छन्, सहरमा पनि धेरै नै छ। सो हामीले त यहाँ त कोठा भाडाको कुरामा पनि देखेका छौँ होइन। अनि यो अर्को महत्त्वपूर्ण कुरा तपाईँले पनि भन्नुभयो कि यो इन्स्टिट्युसनलाइज भएको छ। यो हाम्रो चाहिँ कसरी इन्स्टिट्युसनलाइज भएको छ भने यो हाम्रो यो हजारौँ वर्षदेखि हाम्रो माइन्डसेटमा छ र हामी त्यसै गरी नै व्यवहार गरिरहेको हुन्छौँ। र त्यो व्यवहार गर्ने मान्छेहरूलाई के लाग्छ भन्दाखेरि यो चाहिँ नर्मल हो भन्ने लाग्छ। यो त नर्मल हो, यो त मैले गर्न मिल्छ भन्ने जस्तो लाग्छ। र हामी जसले चाहिँ यो चाहिँ भोगिरहेछ उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ यो चाहिँ मलाई ह्युम्यान भनेर एक्सेप्टै गरेको छैन भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ हामीलाई लागिरहेको हुन्छ। भनेपछि त्यहाँनिर जुन यो विरोधाभासपूर्ण छ यसको लागि चाहिँ जति छलफल संवाद र कुराकानीहरू हुनुपर्ने हो त्यो हुन सकेको छैन। अर्को महत्त्वपूर्ण कुरा चाहिँ के हो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ कानुन छ होइन, यहाँ हामीले लको कुरा पनि गर्छौँ, त कानुनको कार्यान्वयन गर्ने ठाउँमा को मान्छे छ त भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ महत्त्वपूर्ण कुरा हो क्या। सो पुलिसमा को छ, पुलिसको ब्युरोक्रेसीमा को छ होइन, जजहरू को छ। अब त्यो हेर्ने दृष्टिकोण त्यही नै भएपछि त्यसबाट आउने रिजल्ट पनि त्यही नै हुन्छ। फर इक्जाम्पल हामीले रुकुम घटनाकै उदाहरण लिउँ न। रुकुम घटना यति संवेदनशील नेपालको इतिहासमा 6 जना मान्छे जातकै कारणले मारिएका छन्, तर अहिलेसम्म पनि त्यसको चाहिँ रिजल्ट आउँदैन। भनेको चाहिँ सेम टाइम अमेरिकामा भएको जर्ज फ्लोइडको केसमा त रिजल्ट आइसक्यो होइन, न्याय पाइसक्यो त्यो परिवारले। भनेपछि न्याय कति महँगो छ भन्ने कुरा देखाउँछ। अर्को म तपाईँलाई के भन्छु भने मैले धेरै यो भिक्टिमको परिवारसँग भेट्ने र उहाँहरूको आमाहरू, विशेष गरेर आमाहरूसँग भेट्दाखेरि चाहिँ के भन्नुहुन्छ र रुकुमकै ती आमाहरूले पनि मलाई के भन्नुभएको छ भने उहाँहरूसँग यो न्याय माग्न जाने कुनै सामर्थ्य नै छैन। उहाँहरूसँग भनेको चाहिँ खालि आँसु र आशा मात्रै बाँकी छ भनेर भन्नुहुन्छ। भनेको कति महँगो छ क्या न्याय। त्यो भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो चाहिँ घाउ लागेको छ भनेर रिकगनाइज गर्नु र यो घाउको निको पार्नको लागि चाहिँ उपचार गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ सबैले बुझ्नु जरुरी छ। यो समाजको सबैजनाले बुझेर पनि धेरैजनाले बुझ पचाउनु भएको छ। त्यो बुझेर बुझ पचाउनेहरूले त्यो आफैलाई एक्चुअली रिफ्लेक्ट गर्नु पर्यो र अरू यो मानवीयकरण हुने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ यो महत्त्वपूर्ण छ जस्तो मलाई लाग्छ।
दलठाको रुकुम भट्टाको कुरा निकालिहाल्नु, मैले नाम लिनै पर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ हाम्रो पोडियमबाट पनि। उहाँहरूलाई सबैलाई एक्चुअली सम्झाउनै पर्छ यो इन्सिडेन्टलाई जस्तो लाग्छ होइन। नवराज विक 20 वर्षको हुनुहुन्थ्यो, सन्जु विक 21 वर्षको, लोकेन्द्र सुनार 18 वर्ष, टिकाराम सुनार 20 वर्ष, गोविन्द साई 17 वर्ष र गणेश बुढा 17 वर्ष होइन। कति समय भयो त यो इन्सिडेन्ट भएको?
2020 मा भएको हो, अहिले चाहिँ 3 वर्ष भयो।
सुनवाई भएको छैन अझै?
छैन, यो जेठ 31 गते चाहिँ सुनवाई हुन्छ भनेको छ, तर अब हुन्छ कि हुँदैन त्यो पनि थाहा छैन।
जस्टिस डिलेड इज जस्टिस डिनाइड भने होइन हामीले सधैँ हल्ला गर्ने चाहिँ त्यही हो नि।
एक्ज्याक्टली।
के भन्ने त अब चिफ जस्टिस पनि अपोइन्ट भएको छैन अहिलेसम्म, कहिलेदेखि बेन्च खाली छ।
अब हाम्रो त्यो कन्ट्रोलभन्दा बाहिरको कुरा भयो, तर भइरहेको संरचनाहरूले काम गर्नुपर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई।
एब्सोल्युटली। तपाईँले भनेको एकदम इम्पोर्टेन्ट कुरा लाग्यो, इम्प्लिमेन्ट गर्ने ठाउँमा को छ होइन त?
हो, एक्ज्याक्ट।
हु इज एट द राइट प्लेस। एउटा दलितको कथा त दलित भयो भने न बुझ्छ होला होइन त? म ब्राह्मणले बुझ्छु भनेर त हुँदैन होला। म काठमाडौँ बस्ने, त्यो पनि प्रिभिलेज ब्राह्मणले मैले रुकुमको इस्यु बुझ्छु भनेर भन्नु भने चाहिँ ठुलै आँखामा छारा हाले जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई चाहिँ, नढाँटी भन्दा। किनकि म नेपाल मुभ हुने बेलासम्म मलाई मधेस आन्दोलनको बारेमा पनि मैले जे बुझाइरहेछु मैले कम्प्लिटली गलत बुझाइरहेछु। म आफू मधेस गएर त्यहाँ बसेर विभिन्न व्यक्तिहरूसँग, त्यहाँको मान्छेहरूसँग कुरा गरिसकेपछि त्यो मेरो सोचले 180 डिग्री नै टर्न लियो कि त्यो समयमा पनि।
यसमा म खालि एउटा जोडिहाल्नु है, यो चाहिँ कस्तो रहेछ भने जात भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ कस्तो रहेछ भने फर इक्जाम्पल एउटा सानो उदाहरण नै लिउँ, अन्तर्जातीय विवाह भयो भने अरूको छोराछोरीले गर्यो भने ठिक छ, अरूकोमा भयो भने ठिक छ, तर आफ्नोमा हुनु भएन। इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा चाहिँ के छ भने आफू चाहिँ नबदलिने तर अरूलाई चाहिँ बदलियोस् भन्ने चाहना छ क्या, इन्ट्रेस्टिङ चाहिँ। एनिवे
Suraj, I'm going to ask you something in a more of a, I want you to answer it in a more global perspective. When we said Dalit, a lot of us just understand it's something prevalent in South Asia, basically Nepal and India. I would say that because I think it has a lot to do with the religion, Hinduism, and that's what we have understood so far, right? But in the global perspective, it represents a lot of other communities as well, don't it?
Yeah, I mean, we might not call them Dalits. There are particular Dalits of each society, the most marginalized people who have been oppressed historically due to the traditions, and then call it an hereditary system. Similar kind of forms we can see, and that's nothing but caste. So one might not call the Dalit, but one might be an Osu of a Nigerian society. And if you go to the Mexican geography, within them there are these hierarchies of caste that exist, and very particularly, almost in any part of the world, if you dig it with a certain anthropological and sociological lens, then you will get it. Many times what people did is to not probe that question and just look at through as a color problem, because colonization happened in past 200 years, which was very strong, and then sometimes 300-400 years, it kind of predates, but the impact was in this kind of centuries. So much of the history that we read now is a modern history of past few hundred years. So many people who challenge that colonial history, they kind of go pre-colonial. But when you go pre-colonial, it's not like a very beautiful story always. Sometimes it is, but not always, because there's been people who are working on somebody's land for so many centuries, perpetual chattel slavery. And then so globally, we have to understand that the structure of caste is global. So caste exists as a society. Somewhere it is, people are ranking each other based on their color, their ethnicity, the kind of language they speak, and it's everywhere. So nobody should have this moral high that we don't have caste in our society. I think it's just about time when researchers have to be investigated in that term. By confining it to South Asia, what we do is we just essentialize what caste means in our part of the world, which is true, which it is. I mean, there's no second thought about. But also, there can be a potential investigation in other societies as well. Now, having said that, many people think that I'm giving a green pass to the Brahmins of societies. Like, hey, you're saying, so that the Brahmins can say, listen, we are not the worst people. It's everywhere in the world, so it's normalized. I mean, a violence against women in one part of the world doesn't mean that it is normal. Violence everywhere is violence, be against a woman or a person of any person of the background, and but many times this debate is twisted and turned around, and so today now there are new researchers, people doing, and myself writing a book which kind of looks at it in a much more global perspective. But irrespective of that, right? I mean, so much migration out of South Asia is happening in the world. Everywhere you go, definitely you'll find South Asians. I mean, and also it's like one of the most populated regions, right? And on top of that, it has an exodus of people of different kind of labor. So naturally, when they go settle, make their home, let's say in Australia, I mean, there's been research, like Mitra Pariyar did a research on Nepali Dalits and how caste is among the Gurungs and among the Newari community, and how it reproduces. Then there is this Khas Arya kind of mix. It's very interesting how it kind of reforms. So it is really becoming this global phenomenon already, and we can see that happening through various legislations in the US. UK has already been debating for nearly 20 years now.
Okay. Coming back to India though, and it kind of touches Nepal as well right now. With a lot of discussion has been going on with the re-emergence, I would say, BJP in India, and with the religious tone, extreme religious tone, I would say that, set. And Nepal is kind of, I can say, following that path as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And how much of a challenge has it been for Dalit right movement with a prevailing notion of extreme religious powers?
I mean, that's the problem, right? So when you make anything religion, it becomes a blasphemous issue. You cannot touch, right? I mean, and this is the genius of these crooked people who have mastered the art of inserting anything to do with faith and religion. And when we do that, it's really difficult. But then how do we challenge? And that's the beauty of India's constitution, really. The genius of that is that, irrespective of that, it puts the project of annihilation of caste as rather not annihilation, untouchability, abolition of it. But yet caste is intact. So it's a very fine balance, yet it cost people lives. And that's one of the limitations of constitutional validity. Because with the rise of extreme religious intolerance, right? And one of the problems here is when you make a religious extremist point of view, when you counter that, it's a unfair level playing field. It's an unfair. The level playing field is they would like to have, because what you do is, somebody talks about religion and all, then you say, we are constitutionally secular country. That means you have right to have religion, but doesn't mean you have right to bullshit about your religion and impose about that stupidity upon other people and call it valid. So caste question has been fragmented by this kind of segregation, and so the BJP has mastered this so effectively, especially under the RSS and its many associate organizations. The project really for them is to make their version of Brahminic Hinduism a kind of a global appeal, something that one can find spiritual solace, something that needs to, because they look themselves in comparison to Christianity or Islam, the way this missionary faiths came out of this small desert and then traveled to the rest of the world. And for them, it's like, why not Hinduism? We are much more greater. We wrote these texts 5,000 years ago. We've been thinking about theology so deeply, philosophically. So for them, really is to alter the structure of religious basis. And for them, how do we insert? And so they've used everything in the book. And so, unfortunately, now in India, you will see there's a lot of Muslim violence.
Yeah.
Because you see that, because it's Hindu-Muslim, it's very apparent. But what you don't see is the caste of that Muslim who's getting victimized. That's the kernel of this debate, right? I mean, it's not that people have a certain love for certain religion. It's just how caste is functioning. So many people in our part of the world, at least my part of the world, are very thinking each other not through immediately about religion. Religion is secondary. The first is caste. So if you're a Muslim, hang out with each other. You might pray each other, but the biradari is different. Christianity is same, Hindu is same. So it has just masked, and by this globalizing of Hinduism that they want to do to Hindutva kind of politics, Nepal is just a very tiny actor for them. They just want to swallow it. And how they do is the appropriation of history. And unfortunately, Nepal's history has also been very much Asal Hindustani kind of thing. So it has to act as a junior cousin that has been thrown out of the house, but still loves the house because my family is there. And it's a very orphan position that the Nepali Brahmins and Kshatris have, and I sometimes laugh at them because they still would like to have that aspirational, yet they want to be nationalist about it.
Yeah, that's a fresh take. Pradip Dalan सोधिहाल्छु एउटा इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा यही लाइनमा. नेपालमा विशेष गरी नेपालमा त अब छँदैछ धेरै जस्तो हामीले देख्ने ट्विटरमा होइन हल्ला हल्ला क्रिस्चियनिटी आयो ध्वस्त पार्न थाल्यो भन्ने खालको न्यारेटिभहरू सेट गर्छौँ. अनि त्यसैको एउटा रिसर्चहरू कतै कतै पढाएको थिएँ र त्यो जो चाहिँ तपाईँको क्रिस्चियनिटीमा मुभ भएको छ भनौँ न, उसको राइटफुल्ली उसको ह्युमन राइट्स हो, कन्स्टिट्युसनलाई ग्यारेन्टी गरेर राइट्स हो रिलिजन चेन्ज गर्न पाउने कुरा होइन. त्यसमा धेरै जसो चाहिँ दलितहरू छन् भनेर मैले पढाएको थिएँ होइन. त्यसको पर्टिकुलर कारण केही छ त?
एउटा कुरा चाहिँ अब तथ्याङ्क मसँग नभएको भएर यति नै भन्न म सक्दिनँ, तर एउटा कारण चाहिँ हिन्दू धर्मभित्र भएको विभेदको कारणले चाहिँ अरू धर्ममा परिवर्तन गर्ने र यो धर्मले गर्दा ठिक हुन्छ कि मान्छेले अल्टरनेटिभ खोजिरहेको हुन्छ नि त। सो मलाई यहाँ अप्ठ्यारो पऱ्यो भने कहाँ जाने हो त भनेर मान्छे सोचिरहेको हुन्छ नि त। सो त्यो एउटा अल्टरनेटिभ बाटो चाहिँ खोजेको हो कि जस्तो मलाई लाग्छ। तर मसँग ठ्याक्कै यो डेटा नभएको भएर यति नै मान्छे गएको छ त्यो भएको कारणले एकदम मास भएको छ भन्ने पनि मलाई लाग्दैन। तर डेफिनेटली चाहिँ अल्टरनेटिभ खोज्दाखेरि चाहिँ एउटा बाटो चाहिँ त्यो अपनाएको चाहिँ हुनसक्छ। र मुख्य कुरा चाहिँ हिन्दू धर्ममा जुन खालको परिवर्तनहरू हुनुपर्ने हो त्यो परिवर्तनहरू नभएको कारणले परिवर्तनलाई संस्थागत गर्नको लागि चाहिँ हिन्दू धर्मको जसले चाहिँ आफूलाई चाहिँ ठेक्का लिएर बसेका छु भनेका छन् उनीहरूले चाहिँ काम नगरेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि पनि यो भएको छ। र धर्म यो परिवर्तन गर्ने धेरै मान्छेलाई रहर भएर या कुनै त्यस्तो आवश्यकता भएर भन्दा पनि त्यो परिवर्तनको भोग र डिग्निफाइड लाइफको भोग जुन छ नि जो आत्मसम्मानपूर्वक नाच्न पाउने जुन भोग छ त्यसले जगाएको हो जस्तो मलाई लाग्छ खास चाहिँ।
त त्यही कुरा चाहिँ अलिकति मलाई लाग्यो मधेसमा चाहिँ धेरै देखिँदैन कि फेरि त्यही कुरा लागु हुँदैन होइन। अलिकति पहाडी एरियामा जाउँ अथवा तपाईँको यो पहाडिया ब्राह्मणहरू क्षेत्रीहरू भएको तराईको बेल्टको एरियातिर चाहिँ फेरि देखिन्छ। म आफू पनि जुन ठाउँको हो नवलपरासी पूर्व त्यो एरियामा पनि हामीले देखिरहेको छौँ चर्चहरू फर्म भएको होइन मान्छेहरू कन्भर्ट भएको। तर मधेसको साइडमा चाहिँ देख्दैन त्यसको एउटा पर्टिकुलर कुनै इस्यु छ कि त्यहाँ चाहिँ झन् यो रिलिजियस फ्याक्टर चाहिँ अझ धेरै स्ट्रङ भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि।
त्यसमा दुईवटा कारण हुनसक्छ। एउटा कारण चाहिँ के हुनसक्छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ मधेसको दलितहरूले के गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ रिभोल्ट हुन्छ भनेर अल्टरनेटिभ खोजिसकेका छैन। किन भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ त्यहाँ चाहिँ सबभन्दा पहिलो चाहिँ खानाकै समस्या छ होइन। त्यसपछि बच्चालाई स्कुल पुर्याउने समस्या छ, ल्यान्ड भूमि छैन होइन। त्यसपछि भूमि नभएपछि नागरिकता छैन। त्यो बेसिक लाइफ जुन छ त्यो नै फुलफिल हुन सकिरहेको छैन भनेपछि त्यो अल्टरनेटिभ खोज्न सक्ने या प्रतिरोध गर्न सक्ने चाहिँ त्यहाँ भइसकेको छैन जस्तो मलाई लाग्छ दलितहरूको सन्दर्भमा। तर फेरि इन्ट्रेस्टिङली के छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ दलितहरू चाहिँ धर्म चाहिँ परिवर्तन भयो तर अब नेपालमा पास्टरहरू को छ भनेर पनि हेर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ होइन। परिवर्तन चाहिँ दलितहरूले गरे होला तर त्यसको लिडरसिपमा चाहिँ अहिले पनि को छ त भन्दा त बाहुन क्षेत्रकै मान्छेहरू चाहिँ सबभन्दा धेरै छन् भनेपछि यसको पनि फेरि बेनिफिट कसले लिइरहेछ र त्यसको हर्ताकर्ता को भइरहेछ भनौँ न। त्यो पावर एक्सर्साइज गर्ने ठाउँमा चाहिँ को छ भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ फेरि इम्पोर्टेन्ट हुन्छ। जुन ठाउँमा चाहिँ दलितहरू छन् जस्तो मलाई लाग्दैन या भए पनि असाध्यै कम मात्रै छन्। यो इन्ट्रेस्टिङ डाइनामिक्स चाहिँ के छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो जता पनि यो सबै ठाउँमा होल्ड गर्नको लागि चाहिँ बाहुन क्षेत्रीहरूले नै विशेष गरी पुरुष बाहुन क्षेत्रीहरूले नै होल्ड गरेको देखिन्छ। यो केसमा पनि अब रिसर्चै गरेर हामीले हेरौँ कि नेपालमा पास्टरहरू को छ मेन त्यसको लिडर को छ होइन। दलितहरूलाई खालि त्यो कन्भर्सन मात्रै गरिरहेको हो कि मैले त अघि नै भनिसकेँ कि खालि यो अर्को एउटा बाटो हो कि अल्टरनेटिभ या हामीले खोजिरहेको आत्मसम्मानपूर्वक बाँच्न पाउने त्यसको लागि मात्रै हो जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई दलितहरूको सन्दर्भमा भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ।
प्रदीप दाइ मलाई यो एकदम धेरै डिबेट भएको क्वेसन भयो भएर I'm gonna ask Suraj the same thing as well. What does Dalit rights movement want or is it seeking basically? Is it equality or is it equity? The age-old debate, you know, I mean, right? Everybody always talks about this because we have the quota system as well. बिहान इलेक्सन कमिसनले नयाँ ऐन ल्याउँदैछ अरे परिमार्जन गरेर भनेर पढिरहेको थिएँ कि त न्युज। अनि त्यसमा बिचमा बसेको भोटरहरूको कुरा गरेँ अलिअलि अनि त्यसपछि आएर महिलाको बारेमा कुरा गरेँ। तर त्यहाँभन्दा बाहेक मैले अरू मार्जिनलाइज कम्युनिटीको कुरा गरेँ देखिनँ त्यहाँ होइन मिस भएको कुरा एउटा त्यो कति ठाउँमा म्यान्डेटरी बनाइदिए पनि छैन त्यो एउटा कोटा बनाइदिएछ त्यतिले पुगेछ भन्ने बुझाइ छ होइन दाइ। के हो त लडाइँ खास यो लडाइँ के को लागि हो त?
यसलाई सजिलो भाषामा मैले के भन्ने गरेको छु भने यो राज्यमा चाहिँ जुन खालको विविधता छ यो देशमा जुन खालको विविधता छ त्यो राज्य संयन्त्रमा नि झल्किनु पर्यो। भेरी सिम्पल। यो देशमा जुन खालको विविधता छ त्यो राज्य संयन्त्र सबै ठाउँमा झल्किनु पर्यो जुन हुन सकिरहेको छैन। अब त्यहाँ महिलाको कुरा आयो। महिलाको कुरा किन आउँछ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ महिलाको कुरा आउँदाखेरि बाहुन क्षेत्री महिलाको कुरा पनि आउँछ होइन। अनि तर दलितको कुरा किन आउँदैन भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ दलित आउँदाखेरि चाहिँ त्यहाँ चाहिँ च्यालेन्जको रूपमा लिइन्छ। अहिले नै हामीले हेरौँ अहिलेको पार्लियामेन्टमा 165जना दलित 165जना सांसदहरू हुनुहुन्छ, एकजना मात्रै दलित सांसदले जितेर चुनाव जितेर आउनुभएको छ भनेको 165जनामा एकजना मात्रै हुने यो लोकतान्त्रिक अब हामीले भनेको देशमा यो गणतन्त्र आइसकेपछि पनि यस्तो हुन्छ भनेपछि त दलितहरू कहाँ जाने होइन। दलितहरूको लागि त छुट्टै राज्य त छैन, हामीले त यहीँ आफ्नो हिस्सा खोज्ने हो भनेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो जुन खालको हाम्रो माइन्डसेट छ नि, यो नगर्दा पनि हुन्छ भन्ने खालको जुन माइन्डसेट छ त्यसले चाहिँ नेपालको, मैले त के भन्छु भन्दाखेरि नेपालको संविधानलाई नेपालको राजनैतिक पार्टीहरू जसले बनाएको उनीहरूले नै कुल्चिरहेछन्, संविधानलाई नै मानिरहेको छैन। किनभने संविधानलाई मान्ने हो भने पनि कम्तीमा पनि अहिले दलितहरूको कम्तीमा पनि 38जना सांसदहरू हुनुपर्छ, अहिले 16जना मात्रै सांसदहरू हुनुहुन्छ भनेको प्रोपोर्सनल रिप्रेजेन्टेसनको कुरा हामी गरिरहेछौँ भनेपछि त्यो भएको छैन। अर्को एउटा इम्पोर्टेन्ट, म धेरै लामो कुरा भन्न चाहन्न तर इम्पोर्टेन्ट कुरा र प्रश्न चाहिँ के गर्न चाहन्छु भने यो कोटा आएपछि सब चिज बिग्रियो भन्ने जस्तो भाष्य निर्माण गर्न खोजिएको छ होइन। यहाँ नेपालको सन्दर्भमा सबभन्दा बढी कोटा भनेको बाहुन क्षेत्रीलाई छ। किन भन्दाखेरि सबै ठाउँमा कसरी एउटै समुदायको मान्छे भयो त भनेको त्यो एक खालको त्यो कोटा नै हो। किन भन्दाखेरि सधैँभरि उनीहरूले पाए। धेरै मान्छेले के भन्छन् भने मेरिटोक्रेसीको कुरा गर्छन् होइन। मेरिटोक्रेसीको कुरा गर्ने हो भने यो देश, यो चाहिँ दक्षिण एसियामा र संसारको गरिब र हरितन्नम देश कसरी भयो? एकदम मेरिटोक्रेसी भएको मान्छेहरूले चलाएको देश त गजबको हुनुपर्ने हो नि त, त्यस्तो पनि त छैन नि त यो देश छ भनेपछि यो मैले खालि प्रश्न के फ्ल्याग गर्न खोजिरहेको छु भने हामीले एकचोटि आफूलाई रिफ्लेक्ट गर्नु पऱ्यो, फर्केर हेर्नु पऱ्यो कि हामी ठिक बाटोमा छौँ कि छैनौँ भने। जब डाइभर्सिटीको इन्स्योर हुन्छ, विविधता इन्स्योर हुन्छ, तब मात्रै समृद्धि आउँछ। अहिले चाहिँ अब फर इक्जाम्पल कुरा गर्ने भने दलितहरू चाहिँ ट्रेडिसनल अकुपेसनमा धेरै सिप भएको मान्छेहरू छन् होइन, तर उनीहरूको सिपको कुनै पनि कदर भएको छैन, उनीहरूको लागि छुट्टै केही व्यवस्था राज्यले गरेको छैन, जसले गर्दाखेरि भएको सिप पनि लोप हुने र सँगसँगै चाहिँ उनीहरूले कुनै रोजगारी पनि नपाउने, उद्यम पनि गर्न नसक्ने यस्तो खालको अवस्था छ। त्यसैले यो हामीले बुझ्नुपर्ने कुरा चाहिँ के हो भन्दाखेरि भेरी सिम्पल, मैले जहिले पनि के भन्ने गरेको छ भने मलाई चाहिँ मैले पर्सनली के भन्छु भने यो देश चाहिँ मेरो हो तर मेरो यो राज्य चाहिँ होइन, राज्य मेरो हुन सकिरहेको छैन मैले भन्ने चाहिँ यो। त्यो भएको कारणले गर्दा देशको विविधता राज्य समुद्रमा झल्किनु पर्यो, तब मात्रै यो देश अगाडि बढ्छ।
Suraj, you just gave me a interesting stat. So out of 165 directly represented members of the parliament, there is only one Dalit out there. We do have proportional system as well, which basically, in true Nepali terms, it forces political parties to actually allocate a certain number of seats for the community as well. But if you look at it from the directly represented member of the parliament, then that's really sad to see just one member out there. At the same time, one can again say that, you know what, it's all based on merit. Anyone can give their candidacy in the election and be popular, have popular agendas and win the election. So bringing the same old debate back to you, how does quota system work until a country is truly meritocratic?
I mean, I think quota is a...
How is it supposed to work, I mean?
Okay, I think we need to have clarity on what quota is and how it fits into the system that we are operating in. Quota and system are two different things. The system is what the state is, how it is operating. Quota is an agenda which wants to have inclusivity, because when you are a democratic country, democracy means representation of all. Without that, at least political democracy, we are looking at autocracy. We are looking at oligarchy. We are looking at people who are with minority views ruling it. And for that not to happen, democracy is a very good position. And democracy is a promise to the country that we are trying to achieve equality. Now, it might not come in day one. It might not even come in 10 years. But the first step is to be taken to reach that end goal. Quota is that first step to reach that end goal. And so sometimes the first step is difficult people to understand, because they are used to going in certain directions for certain time, And then suddenly there's a new approach, and you're like, I'm not used to it. It's been discriminated. And so people who feel that meritocracy should prevail, if that's the real metric, then who sets the standards of meritocracy? That's what matters, right? If we are setting the standards of, let's say, us, 3 of us going and swimming in a 50-meter water tank. Now, if we are really assessing, and let's say we go, and 2 of you fail miserably, and I succeed. But then if you look at it, how come Suraj was so fast? Well, Suraj must be taking training, or maybe he's been doing this for some time. We never been in the water. So, and so metric of meritocracy cannot be decided the terms I feel are necessary. So if I have to decide, I'll say the fastest swimmer will win the game. But I will not use the other things like, what, I'm trained. Are you guys trained enough to compete with me equally? So meritocratic argument begins with an unfair and unequal tests. The measurements with we are assessing other person's merit. It doesn't take into account composite whole. It just takes into account that which benefits them. And in many cases, people from the dominant castes they are in the system. They are ruling. The prime ministers, very shamefully, of Nepal so far have been Brahmin people, Brahmin male. And I think that's emblematic. What's meritocratic about Brahmins and not about the Janajati people or about the Madhesi people? What's there that what makes them special of a certain stock? And that's where we start questioning, because unless and until democracy is constantly checked, it will never have a progress. It will always, it's like you need to change water from the tank, or else it's going to create a very ugly algae. Democracy, the kind of system that we need to bring, the politics of quota, representation, we have to understand it's about compensations, but also it's about taking the country forward. Unless and until we have that graph, and if inequality persists, no country can progress. Inequality is the cardinal sin of any country's progress. And so for us to think about future, about meritocracy, we need to think that meritocracy, if decided by the ruling class, is always going to favor them. Your school system, somebody who sets up the school curriculum, and now their children are going to go to the same school and pass. It's so unfair to the people who have never had access to the language, to the culture, to the curriculum. All of a sudden you tell them, okay, you have to compete with these people, and then what you do? Okay, let's make more arrangements. And then what kind of arrangements you look? You look for social metrics. How is the society contained? Society is contained according to region, language, caste, religion, possibly ethnicity. There are various metrics for different countries. In our context, it applies to this kind of assessments. And many people who have a very negative viewpoint of meritocracy have not really quota as opposed to meritocracy. The graphic representation that he gave about more than 160, but only one person is there. That is a failure of meritocracy, and that really means this is how meritocracy should be worked, where we will just promote ourselves under the name of meritocracy, and if you don't have popular mandate, you don't. I mean, this is not a natural thing. It is a very crooked plot, strategized over several generations, and it's mastered under now modern lingua of the state and law, and that's the problem. So it's good to be here.
Okay, let's try to wrap it up now. Pradip bhai, final statement. हामी अगाडि बढ्ने बाटो अब के हो, कता जानु पर्ने हो हैन, किनकि टाइम एन्ड अगेन भन्ने गरिन्छ नन प्रफिटहरु एनजिओहरु चाहिँ धेरै भयो, यो मुद्दामा ल्याएर पैसा ल्याउने बाटो चाहिँ भएको छ, तर चेन्जेस केही पनि देखिया छैन भनिन्छ। सरकारले पनि आफ्नो साइडबाट हैन हामीले कोटा व्यवस्था गर्दैकै छौं, त समस्या त समाधान हुनुपर्ने हाम्रो जिम्मेवारी होइन भने जस्तो गर्छ। अबको बाटो के त?
अब दुईवटा बाटो, एउटा चाहिँ संविधान कानुनमा भएको कुराहरूको इफेक्टिभ कार्यान्वयन गर्नु पर्यो, पहिलो कुरा चाहिँ। दोस्रो कुरा चाहिँ यो सवाल चाहिँ खालि यो दलितको मात्रै सवाल होइन, यो सबैको सवाल हो। स्पेसली यङ पिपल यसमा इन्गेज हुनु पर्यो र कास्टमा कन्भर्सेसन हुनु पर्यो, छलफल हुनु पर्यो। यो दुईटा कुरा चाहिँ गर्नु जरुरी छ।
Dr. Suraj, your message to the young people listening to our show today, what should be the way forward? What's next?
I think you should just be thinking about the future, how we would like to future. Many times we decide future by looking at the past, but sometimes past is not the right guidance for future. So future has to be experienced to present. And for that, you need to have vision. So young people really need to get out of the box. They have to be rebellious. They should challenge existing status quo. And also, they should not be victims of a false propaganda. They have to learn. Because once the victimization happens, you not only damage yourself, but also many people around you. So it's like a coronavirus that once you are infected. So it's better we infect ourselves by having more education, more interactions, more friendships, more love stories, more about fraternity that we need to grow. And I think that will be a beautiful way to live the life with certain conduct and discipline.
Thank you, Pradip Dai, for your time. Thank you, Suraj.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I mean, you had a really crazy schedule, but still you managed to come down here.
We are running now. In fact, because I have a meeting with one person, and after that I have a Zoom call in UK. So I'm just worried about that as well.
And then next time you come to Nepal, I really hope we can invite you in a more equal society.
I hope so too. I think that's a good way to end this, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
so much.
Thank you.